The endless bloom. The wind howled through the desolate streets, a cry of despair that echoed through the alleyways of an abandoned town. Dust swirled, coating the broken windows, abandoned vehicles, and crumbling houses. It was a town forgotten by time, erased from the map in a cruel twist of fate. And yet, in the center of this ghostly town, at the edge of a patch of land that once held life, stood an old man. His face was weathered and marked with years of hardship, but his eyes still held a spark of something greater. Something like hope, like belief. He had long stopped looking at the world around him for solace. His gaze now fell upon the tree he had planted so many years ago. The man had moved to this town when he was young, eager to build a life, to grow with the world around him. But life had not been kind to him, nor to the town. The vibrant streets, once bustling with laughter and conversation, had fallen silent as the factories closed and the people left. In time, the town became nothing but a shadow of what it used to be. Yet, through it all, the man had stayed. He was determined to find meaning, to give this forsaken place a reason to exist once again. And so, he planted the tree. When he first planted it, the tree was little more than a sapling, fragile and small. The man tended to it with the same care he gave to his own soul. Every morning, he watered it, whispered encouragement to it, and even talked to it as though it were a person. He didn't understand why, but it brought him peace. He felt connected to the tree, as though they shared something unspoken. Years passed, and the tree grew slowly, struggling against the dry soil, the harsh winds, and the fading light of a world that had no place for life anymore. He began to wonder if it would ever truly grow, if he would ever see it reach its full potential. But he continued to tend to it year after year. Then one day, something changed. It was a morning like any other. Gray skies, the smell of damp earth, and the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. The man stepped out of his small house, as he had done every day for so many years. But this time, something caught his eye. He stopped dead in his tracks, his breath catching in his throat. The tree, it had grown. Not just grown a little, but grown. Overnight, it had shot up several feet, its trunk thickening, its branches reaching out like the arms of a giant. Leaves shimmered with a golden hue, as if touched by magic. The man could hardly believe his eyes. How could this be? How could a tree that had struggled for so long suddenly burst forth with such vitality? It was as if the earth itself had decided to breathe life into the tree, as if it had been waiting all these years for the right moment to bloom. The mystery gnawed at the man's mind, but he was too overwhelmed by wonder to think much further. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, something he had almost forgotten was there. Hope. He approached the tree slowly, almost reverently, his fingers brushing against its bark. As he touched it, a strange feeling washed over him, a sense of connection that was deeper than anything he had ever felt before. It was as though the tree was alive in ways he couldn't understand. It was no longer just a tree. It had become something more, a symbol of life, of persistence, of the quiet strength that had carried both it and him through years of hardship. The tree seemed to whisper to him, its leaves rustling in the wind, almost like a soft voice calling him to listen, to pay attention. And so he did. He began to spend more time with the tree, talking to it, sitting beneath its wide canopy, lost in the quiet moments it offered him. He noticed something else, too. Strange things began happening around the tree. Animals, long absent from the town, began to appear. Birds perched on its branches. Rabbits hopped nearby, and the once fading flowers of the land started to bloom again. It was as though the very presence of the tree was resurrecting life, one living thing at a time. A soft, golden light seemed to hover around it, casting everything in a warm glow. The man marveled at how quickly the world seemed to come alive around him. But as the days passed, a strange sense of unease began to settle in his chest. He would wake in the middle of the night, his mind racing with questions, his heart heavy with uncertainty. What was happening to the tree? Why had it grown so quickly, so suddenly? There was something about the tree that didn't feel entirely right. He had spent years with it, and yet, now, he felt a distance, a coldness that lingered beneath the warmth of its light. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him, something hidden in the shadows of its massive trunk, something older and more powerful than anything he had ever known. It wasn't long before the first signs of something sinister began to show. The once beautiful leaves, golden and shining, began to twist and curl in unnatural ways. The tree's bark grew darker, its surface now etched with strange markings, symbols that the man didn't recognize. The air around the tree grew thick, and a low, eerie hum could be heard if you stood too close. It wasn't the wind, it was something else, something ancient. The man tried to ignore it at first, convincing himself that it was just his imagination, a trick played by the isolation and years of solitude. But the more he ignored it, the more intense the sensation became. The tree was changing, but not in a way he could understand. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the man sat beneath the tree, deep in thought. He was no longer sure what he was searching for, but something inside him told him that the answers were here, somewhere in the twisted branches and the dark shadows beneath them. It was then that he heard it, the voice. Soft at first, like a whisper on the wind, but then louder, clearer. It was coming from the tree itself. The voice spoke in a language he did not understand, but the words were unmistakable, pleading, desperate, and yet full of power. The man felt a cold chill run down his spine, and for the first time in years, he felt true fear. But he couldn't stop himself. The pull of the tree was too strong. The desire to understand, to uncover the mystery, was overwhelming. He reached out to touch the tree, and as his fingers brushed against the bark, a surge of energy shot through him. He gasped, stumbling back, his heart racing. Images flashed before his eyes, visions of a time long before he was born, of a world where the tree had stood as a guardian, as a sentinel of life and death. It was not just a tree, it was a being, a force of nature older than time itself, a being that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, that had lived through the ages, growing stronger with each passing century. The man's breath quickened, and the fear in his chest grew. He realized then that the tree had not been waiting for the right moment to bloom. It had been waiting for him. He was the key, the one who would unlock its true power. And now he understood why the tree had chosen him. He had given it the care, the patience, and the belief it needed to awaken. But with this awakening came a price. The tree was not just a symbol of life. It was a guardian of dark forces, forces that had long been sealed away, hidden beneath the earth, waiting for a time when they would be unleashed once again. The man stood there, trembling, as the tree seemed to pulse with energy, its branches swaying in a rhythm that mirrored his racing heartbeat. He knew that his life, everything he had known, everything he had believed in, would never be the same again. He had come to this place to find meaning, to make sense of a world that had lost its way, but he had stumbled upon something far greater than he could have ever imagined. The tree was alive, yes, but it was not merely a tree. It was a force of nature, a creature born of the earth itself, and it held the key to an ancient power that could reshape the world. In the silence that followed, as the wind whispered through the leaves, the man made his decision. He would not run. He would not turn away. He would stand with the tree, embrace its power, and face whatever came next. For the first time in years, he understood that everything, his struggles, his pain, his years of waiting, had led him to this moment. The tree had taught him something he could never have learned alone, that sometimes the greatest growth comes in the face of fear, that even in the darkest of times, patience, care, and belief could bring about something beautiful. And so, the man remained beneath the tree, watching as the world around him began to change once again. The tree's roots spread deep into the earth, reaching for the hidden secrets of the past, and the man, with his heart full of both awe and fear, knew that the journey had only just begun. As the tree grew, so too did the man. Through it, he found not only the answers he had sought, but also a new beginning, a new way of seeing the world. He understood now that patience, persistence, and faith could yield incredible results. But more than that, he understood that growth was not always a straight path. Sometimes, it required facing the darkness, embracing the unknown, and finding strength in the most unlikely places. And so, in the quiet, the man sat beneath the tree, no longer a man alone in an abandoned town, but a part of something greater, something eternal, something that would never fade, so long as there was life to nurture it.
Whispering echoes.